there's so much out there for marketing, lead gen, building your sphere, all of that, networking, but there's very little on like how to structure and set up your real estate business, the fundamental keys that, make it run.
Hello and welcome to episode 74 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Michele Johnson, founder of The Prepared Agent. Based in central Pennsylvania, Michele entered the real estate industry under two fantastic mentors, allowing her to seek their guidance whenever a new situation arose. Knowing that experience is not the same all new agents have had, Michele began to focus on creating comprehensive training materials for new agents to, as she says it, hit the ground running and give you the confidence needed to build a successful real estate business. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or somebody else on your team has an inspirational story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Michele. I've included a link to her site, preparedagent.com, in the episode description for you to learn more. So really the way I like to get everything started is if you can just introduce yourself a little bit, where you're at in the country and kind of how long you've been in real estate.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to be here. My name's Michele Johnson, and this is year 4 for me in real estate. It all started about 5 years ago when my husband and I were about to sell our house in Tennessee. We wanted to relocate home, which is here, central Pennsylvania. And we found this real estate agent, and she had an amazing first impression. Listing appointment was awesome. And I'm like, yes, this is our girl. Now, rewind a little bit. Although I've been in this 4 years, I grew up around it. My dad is an associate broker, so he's been in the business 30 years. So as a child, I saw his schedule. I saw his everyday life. I heard him talk to clients. I heard, him and my mom talk. So I was like familiar with the process, right? But didn't really know it was my calling yet. So anyways, we're selling our house in Tennessee, and it was very frustrating. I was so impressed and excited. And then like the lack of communication and the questions I had, and I didn't feel prepared. I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what to expect. And thank God I had my dad as kind of a counselor, to help me with what questions I should be asking. So anyways, we did sell our house. We did sell it for top dollar. So she did do her job, but the process itself was really frustrating. And so I called my dad and I was like, you know what? I can do this. I want to do this. I'm getting my license. And I was like, Dad, he was, kind of getting out, semi-retired. I'm like, I need you to teach me this. So I got my license. And here we are 4 years later. We worked together and we joined another agent who's very successful at the brokerage. They both have worked at their entire careers. So we're working together, which has been an awesome experience for me. Like learning from your dad, right? That's right. Great. So as I'm getting started, I'm learning the business, working with clients, starting to ask a lot of questions, which is something I'm really good at. And I'm like, what is the right way to do this? Is there a wrong way? What's the best way? I don't know. There was so much information. And, there's a gap from a new agent to an experienced agent. They're so far removed from those everyday little nuances that we experience as a new agent, but to them, it's just everyday stuff, right? So I started looking around and I'm hungry for information. I don't know where to look. There's so much out there for marketing, lead gen, building your sphere, all of that, networking, but there's very little on like how to structure and set up your real estate business, the fundamental keys that, make it run, and the knowledge even. So here we are. And I decided about a year ago that I was going to put together material that essentially would help onboard new agents and kind of close that gap from when you get your license to as you're getting started in real estate. So I've developed products that essentially are what I wish I had when I got started. because yes, you can, Google templates and prompts and, scripts and things like that, but there's not really a solution, like an easy, simple solution, because you're already overwhelmed. You just want someone to say, here's what you need to know, without fumbling through those first few years. So that's a little bit about me and where we're at today.
Right. So, and I think a lot of times when it comes to like the training, a lot of times it is like, here's the templates and here's the scripts, but there's not the how to use them
Right.
type thing. So is that really kind of the direction that you've gone in with what you're making?
Yeah. And it's almost more of, what is your role as a real estate agent? What do clients expect from you? Like, what are their questions? And so, for example, like, what should I check at a final walkthrough? You don't really know till something goes wrong that you didn't look at. And then, your clients are upset. So I always struggled with it being at the mercy of my clients. Like, I didn't want my inexperience and learning curve to fall on them, and yes, you have mentors and you have guidance and your broker and there's material out there, but I feel like there's a lot of knowledge that can transfer and you can teach yourself beforehand, just so you're prepared to avoid, situations that could make you look bad to your clients or not provide them with what they want.
Right. Right. I think, you brought up the example of the walkthrough checklist. If I was a new agent, just having that checklist in my hand to make sure that I'm checking all those boxes to where something doesn't bite me later on.
Right. Absolutely. And that was my whole approach, was being prepared, right? Because you can't predict what's going to come up. And we all know, the stuff we encounter is crazy, but you can prepare yourself. And so I've also created, for instance, your role at a showing. How can you confidently start showing buyers homes without, I'm just opening the door and kind of, going through the house? Like, what should you point out? What should you make sure to say to them? Where should, what is your role? And the same goes for listing appointments. We all know the goal is to get the listing, but like, what is the flow? What point should I make sure to talk about? How do I prepare? What all do I bring? And I've tried to condense it in small enough like pieces and tangible products that you can download and follow through, so you can be aware of, and it at least makes you think of questions you can ask, lead agents or other people you're working with.
Yeah. So kind of backing up, before you got into real estate, what was your background before that? Before getting into real estate, if you are so, I think it takes a certain kind of person to want to have all those answers, like to seek out those questions and have all that, that whole list of things ready for people to use in that kind of training material.
Yeah. So it's interesting you asked that. So I started out not at all thinking real estate was something for me. Right. And my sister would always say, like, you should really get your license. I think you'd be good at it. And I started out, I went to school for supply chain, and I held a few roles in like the supply chain management, purchasing, responsibilities. And then I did some consulting work. And once my kids were little, they still are, but I decided I need something more flexible. And when we were coming home, real estate it all just fell into place for me. But as I started in real estate and started to ask questions, and more recently, like last year, as the prepared agent came to me, I was like, every role I've been in, I feel like I try to identify gaps. I don't know why. I'm just drawn to like, how can we make this more efficient? What's the easiest way to do this? So my background has kind of funneled me into that. My other roles have helped me with teaching other people. Anytime I left a position or was, changing roles, I trained the person. I love developing material. I just think it's fun to help people. You have the knowledge. Why not share it with someone else? Which I do think is sort of a shift in the real estate industry right now. And I mean, you guys are doing it. You're connecting real estate agents, to share their knowledge, which is what we need.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely, we've been doing this for almost a year and a half now. And it's been really interesting. The conversations that I've had with people, especially some of the, the more seasoned brokers, and how, they've all said how much of a change and a shift that they've seen in the industry to being, it's not so cutthroat and I'm going to keep everything to myself anymore. Yeah. It is that collaborative effort, because everybody is starting to realize the more we work together, the better everybody does.
I completely agree. And when I was developing this material, I was like, okay, so an agent might think like, what if I get this and another agent gets this, right? But to me, the processes are the same. They're the fundamental steps. We all should be doing the same. What differentiates us is us as people and our relationships and our personalities. So like the content, it shouldn't matter. We all have it. We all should have it. And we all should know how to facilitate it the same way. But it's us that keeps it, different. And that's the value you're offering your clients. But you should know and understand your role and what people expect from you.
Right. And I think even, if you take that whole concept or that mindset of, the for sale by owner sellers out there, they're all like, oh, well, agents are, you use that whole, like, the used car salesman type,
right,
moniker. And if somebody has an experience like you did with your agent, where you just kind of felt lost and things like that, that's where that kind of mindset kind of develops from and can be fostered. But if your agent was awesome and led you through everything, even if you are moving somewhere else, like now you've moved to a different state down the road, if you're going to sell, you're not going to be really thinking for sale by owner. You're thinking, I've had a great experience with my agent, so that's helping out the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just remember as I was going through that process thinking like what I wish I had right now, and like taking mental note, like if I was doing this for someone, this is what I would want. And which I think has really helped me being on that side. We all learn from being on the other side of this experience. And that really has helped me. And a lot of what I've created has also included like what I know clients want from us, because when you're starting, you don't know, you just don't know. Your license does not give you what you need to set up and start a real estate business. So there's a lot of knowledge, resources, tools. There's so much out there. And I wanted to package it up so that it could help agents, easily. They can find this and use it right away. And it's not an overwhelming 12-week course after their license. It's not, another huge investment. It's just simple solutions to training them.
Right. So, kind of tell me a little bit about, you say it's the prepared agent is the name of everything. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the prepared agent is the business itself. And then within that, I did build out a course, and my key offering, I guess, is called a new agent starter kit. And in it, it has a course with 6 modules where I break out the real estate agent. So you as an agent, then I go into the buyer agent, the seller agent, the communication, the transactions, and what you need to know about all of that stuff. Just the little things that you don't even know, you don't know, there's such as, associations don't let you put a sign out front. You don't know that until you get a call that like, hey, you need to get that sign out. So there's a lot of proactive material in there rather than you having to have a reactive, experience. And then I also have products that are the buyer agent, which gives you documents and checklists and walkthroughs and teaches you about your role as a buyer agent, what clients expect from you. It has an elements of a home, little PowerPoint, which I pulled in my dad a lot on. And, we went the mechanicals of a home. You don't know that until you get in and experience, but there's things you can learn ahead of time to prepare yourself to field those questions. So I have smaller little offerings to prepare, whatever you feel you need to revamp or you want to know more about, you can do that. And I have a product transaction tracking, which is like the flow of a transaction. Because I remember starting and being like, so what's the difference between a pended buyer and a pended seller? Like, what are my responsibilities? And I wanted to just not, stumble through it. I wanted a list of like, do this, and you need to communicate this. And so I broke out like the communication that needs to happen, who you need to communicate, what needs to be communicated, and all those details. So they're really, it's there to answer any questions a new agent would have or should have or will have at some point as they're getting started.
Right. And, I think, it's great that you had your dad there to be able to kind of walk you through and just, even 4 years into your career, there's still new things coming up.
Yeah,
And like, that's
Absolutely.
the crazy thing about real estate is that it can take a really long time for all of those different situational things to come up, for you to actually experience them for yourself.
Right. And my dad always says it took him 10 years, he remembers, till he really felt like he got the hang of it. And I'm like, I don't want to wait 10 years. Right. I want to know now, like, I want to shorten that learning curve. Obviously some stuff you got to experience, right. And you're going to learn on the job. So that aspect of it, but it was helpful. It still is, because no, it's easy to ask him any question, right? I don't have to worry about it looking bad in his eyes. So that was a huge help, because I could start, like really, really basic and build up from there. And that's what I tried to do. But it is ever evolving.
Right. And I think, something like the prepared agent, if I were the owner or broker of a small team, I think that would be such a great resource, because you maybe, especially like some of the boutique
Mm-hmm.
brokerages out there, you don't have the huge, machine behind you that, like
Right.
the EXPs and some of those that have a lot of training material. But if I'm on my own, I don't have all that. I don't have,
Right.
the huge backing behind me. And I think that's perfect. What you're doing is perfect for those type of brokerages.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking, as I'm creating this, like, who is my target market? Right. And definitely a new agent. Maybe within their first few years. Cause like I said, I feel like it takes some time for you to realize you need that help. And then an agent that's seasoned and maybe wants to revamp their process or kind of revisit, the landscape's changed. So like, what should I be checking or doing? What's everyone else doing? But brokers, I think they don't have time to train new agents. And I feel like this is like a mini boot camp. So it at least gets them familiar with their role, and they know what questions to ask you. It's all what they're going to be learning on the job. It's not what they got out of their license exam. It gives them a good little boot camp and tutorial into real estate.
Yeah, no, I would definitely add that as my as part of my onboarding package for
Yeah.
any new agents, because a lot of times, when you are thinking about these newer teams or these smaller boutique, you are bringing on new agents that don't have a whole lot of experience.
Right. And, nothing wrong with that. And yes, they're going to learn from your other agents, but I mean, time is so difficult to come by. You're either working in or on your business. You have to prioritize, and training someone, isn't it always easy? And again, like I said, there's a gap between, their knowledge and the level a new agent needs. So I feel like streamlining that and introducing new agents to this material really helps.
Right. So when as you've been kind of going through this process, what's the reaction been like, for the people that have, gotten your materials, and what's the conversation been like from some of those people?
Yeah. So I'm just started launching like a month ago, the actual product. So I've been doing a lot of creating the content and things like that. And I have had some users take it and give me feedback, and they were very receptive of it. Like like I said, a lot of it is like, wow, I didn't even think about that kind of stuff, but this is really helpful to have. And a lot of it is people do expect to get this, like you start your new job, any, company, there's an onboarding, there's a full on process usually to train you and get you, familiar with your expectations. We're just a bunch of independent contractors, right? Everyone has their own onboarding. Some don't have onboarding, some have training. Like, it's not uniform, right? So the expectation is there from a new agent, but it's not always fulfilled. So I've gotten a lot of feedback that is, the key thing. Like, they didn't realize how much you need and how helpful it is to have it ahead of time.
Right. So just, it's kind of interesting that with what with everything that you're creating, but it sounds like, with having your dad there with you, you were not necessarily in that position where you were just kind of thrown out there. How did you see that was needed?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Yeah, I wasn't like, I joined, there's three of us that work together, right? And it was through experiencing working with other agents. Like, I'm like, wait, this one's different than last time. Now this one's different than that. No one's asked you that before. Why aren't you doing this? Like, just the questions and the inconsistencies. I was like, there could be a much better way to do this, And like I said, we should all have it's the same process, it's essentially we're doing the same steps over and over. So why everyone has it so different, and then like translating that to new agents, it's just a mess. So I was like, there could be a better way to do this and to help agents as they're getting started.
Right. Well, I think it's really cool what you're doing. And I think training for me, that's like, a big part of what I do is, with the other branch of our company is the training aspect of things. And, the streamlining of things and finding the easiest way to do things is I think that's, especially today's day and age, nobody has time for a 15-step, thing.
Right.
You got to be able to get it in, get out, and move on. And then also your clients don't want to have this huge drawn out process also.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We want like results oriented, go right away. And so I feel like simplify. I mean, it is complex, real estate, you are expected to know so much information. So I tried to simplify those pieces down so that it's manageable. And, you can take it with you. Like you said, having checklists with you is huge, just to keep you on track and make sure you're not missing any little detail, because a little detail miss can, we all know, be a huge deal. Huge. So that's also why I feel like this training is so important, because, what we're dealing with is a big deal.
Right. Well, and then it's a big deal, and it's really overwhelming when it's one transaction happening at a time. But then what if you have 4 or 5 and trying to keep everything, straight with, okay, the Smiths over here, we're over on this, we're on this step of the process, but the Allens were, 5 steps ahead, or which call is going where. So, prioritizing and then streamlining and making yourself like a cohesive brand and process and having everything in place is so important. And it doesn't have to be hard. That's the other thing. Like, it doesn't have to be. It's simple steps that need to be followed that you just have to keep doing. Yeah. So where can people find, your training and in your, everything you have going on?
Yeah. So my website, preparedagent.com, it has all my products on there, and I'm on Instagram. I do a weekly Are You Prepared For, which is like a situational thing, the random one-offs we all experience, like parents showing up to showings, or like the seller not wanting to leave, and fun stuff like that. So you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on my website. My products are there. I'm adding to them with the feedback I'm getting. And I have a lot more ideas of smaller bite-sized pieces that I can offer that I think will really help people.
Right. So yeah. And kind of going off of that, I know you said you've just really kind of started launching and getting this out there in the last month. So what does 2022 look like? We're at the very beginning of it right now.
It looks very exciting. I know there is a need for this. And I know agents are going to want it and use it. And I have some really good ideas of future material that I'm working on creating and will release. So it's just, I can't wait to get more feedback. And I also want to learn from new agents, what gaps do they feel still exist, and what are they, struggling with and out there for. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm excited for it.
Right. Well, that's the great thing about being in the training space, is there's always something new to create, and kind of, there's a new question to answer, I think is what's always so great about it.
Yeah. It's never ending.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And I love everything you guys are doing with this, collaborating with agents and everything. It's awesome.
I want to thank Michele for joining us today. And again, I've included a link to her site, preparedagent.com, in the episode description. So once again, if you think you or somebody else on your team has an awesome story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode. But remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.